Hello everyone, this is Mr. Combs, and in this video I want to talk about rhythm, meter, and scansion. And a subtitle is, or did you know poems have feet? The human body has a rhythm, a regular flow of motion or sound. Humans are rhythmic beings. According to Saphir and Daniel, if we look closely, we can observe a regular pattern in the way we breathe, or walk, or swim, or plow our fields. There is also rhythm in the way we talk. Furthermore, our hearts beat lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. Because of this internal rhythm, human beings are, as Pickering and Hopper point out, rhythm-making creatures. We see rhythm everywhere. When we listen to the monotone ticking of a wristwatch, we hear it as a rhythmic tick-tock. The rattle of a moving train is heard as a rhythmic clickety-clack. We hear the drumming of a horse's hooves as clip-clop. We make something rhythmic out of even the most dull and invariable experiences. Poetry, then, as a human creation, also has rhythm. Sometimes a poem has a definite, regular pattern that we can measure, and we call this the meter of the poem. When a poem has no regulated pattern throughout, no meter, we say the poem is written in free verse. So free verse is no meter, no regular rhyme either, usually. When we analyze poems with meter, we usually break each line up into a series of feet. And a foot is a grouping of stressed or emphasized and unstressed or not emphasized syllables. So a stressed syllable, when we're trying to measure the meter of a line of poetry, is represented by a dash. And an unstressed syllable is represented by something that looks like a U. Let's consider the two names below, Elaine and Ashley. We can think of each of these names as a foot, or a single group of stressed and unstressed syllables. So think about Elaine. When you say Elaine, and you might slow down the way you say it, Elaine consists of an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed one. When you say Elaine aloud, the emphasis is on the second syllable, right? So you say Elaine, Elaine. Remember, so you notice that the lane is the stressed part. We don't say Elin, Elin, right? That would be stressing the first syllable. So we say Elaine. So Elaine is an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed one. Elaine, and that's how we would represent it. If we were indicating the stressed and unstressed syllable in the foot, we would say U dash. On the other hand, let's think about the name Ashley. Ashley. Notice when we say Ashley, we emphasize the first syllable, ash, and then Lee is sort of not as emphasized. We don't say Ashley, we say Ashley, right? So Ashley consists of a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed one. When you say Ashley aloud, the emphasis is on the first syllable. And this is how we might represent Ashley if we were measuring the foot. We would have a dash and then a U symbol for the stressed and unstressed syllable. Poetry uses, and indeed all speech uses, different types of feet. And we're going to talk about 4 types of feet that are the most common. The first one is the iamb. And the iamb is one unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. So iambs are used in the phrase, I want to go to Italy and eat a pizza pie. So I want to go to Italy. Notice how want there is stressed. Go is stressed. Italy, I think, is easy to, it's probably the easiest to see it. When you say Italy, it and li are the stressed syllables, and the is not stressed. I want to go to Italy and eat a pizza pie. So when you say pizza, the stressed syllable is on the P, right? Pizza, and then z is not as stressed. So that is, and those are iambs. So each unstressed syllable followed by a stressed one is an iamb. I want to go to Italy and eat a pizza pie. The second type of foot we're going to talk about is a trochee. And a trochee is just the opposite. One stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. Now, when I read this line from Shakespeare, notice the difference in the rhythm. You can tell the difference, right? It's going to be very different from I want to go to Italy and eat a pizza pie. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. And I forgot to tell you that a line made up of iambs is called iambic. So back to the trochee. So double, double, toil and trouble. Notice how double, the stress syllable comes first. Fire, fire, the stressed syllable is on the fi, right? Fire, burn, and cauldron, bubble. Notice how different that is than I want to go to Italy and eat a pizza pie. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn, and cauldron, bubble. Right? You can see that, right? And I know that I will say these lines and exaggerate them. And as you're trying to figure out the meter of different poems, you can exaggerate those as well to sort of help you determine the what the feet are. But you can, when I'm just saying these lines normally without the emphasis, you can still hear the difference, I think. And a line made up of trochees is called trochaic. So the next type of foot we're going to talk about is an anapest. And an anapest is two unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable. So this is a line from Edgar Allan Poe's poem Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. So here I have two unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable. For the moon. So notice that for and the are not as emphasized as moon. And nev and are not as emphasized as beams. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams. So notice how there I have two unstressed syllables followed by a stressed one. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And finally, a dactyl. Oh, wait a minute, before I go on. A line made up of anapests is called anapestic. And then finally, a dactyl is a stressed syllable followed by two unstressed syllables. So this is a line from Tennyson. When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made. So notice here that we have a stressed syllable followed by two unstressed syllables. When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made. And a line made up of dactyls is called dactylic. So lines of poetry are made up of several feet. We can categorize poems based on the number of feet contained within the lines. If a poem has 1 foot per line, we say it is written in monometer or monometer. If a line has 2 feet, or if a poem has 2 feet per line, we call that dimeter. 3 feet per line is called trimeter or trimeter. 4 feet per line is called tetrameter. 5 feet per line is called pentameter. 6 feet per line is called hexameter. 7 feet per line is called heptameter. And 8 feet per line is called octameter. So some poems use regular foot and line meter type throughout, while other poems are more varied. So we can think of rhythm as the pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables in a line, and we can think of meter as a system for helping the reader reproduce the rhythm intended by the author. Scansion, then, is the process by which the reader can discover the prevailing rhythm in a poem. The reader does this by identifying the dominant foot contained in the line and identifying the number of feet per line. Lines of poetry can be named by the type and number of feet contained within them. For example, a line of 5 iambs is called iambic pentameter. Try your hand at scanning the following lines. Okay, take a look at these lines and see if you can determine the meter used. And what I like to do is I like to take a word and see if I can find the unstressed and stressed syllables of that word and start from there. So I may not be able to start with shall I, but let me think of a word. And this is not as easy as you might think it is. Well, because of different accents maybe, and also because we don't usually sit and think about which parts of words are stressed or unstressed. So let's look at summer. So I think that summer, based on the way I say it, summer, I think that some is emphasized and mer is not. And to show you that this is not as easy as you might think it is, I had to re-record part of this video because I had convinced myself that mer was in fact the stressed syllable. So summer. But we don't say summer, right? We say summer. So it's easy to sort of emphasize words in such a way that you can make them sound however you want. And so don't run into that confusion. But I think that when I say the word summer naturally, that some is the stressed syllable, right? Summer. Think about compare. Compare, right? Compare. I think that pair maybe is the stressed syllable and come is unstressed, right? So think about this, pause the video if you need to, and we will look at it together in just a moment. Okay, so I hope that you have looked at these lines and tried to come up with the rhythm and tried to measure the rhythm of the lines and indicated the meter and came up with a name for the meter. What is the foot being used and how many feet are there per line? So let's see what I came up with. So I think that the foot is made up of an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day, right? Thou art more lovely. So lovely is another good word, right, to look at. Lovely. Love is obviously the emphasized syllable. And more temperate, right? So this is an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed one, so that is an iamb. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet, per line. So this is iambic pentameter. Now, because it comes closest to the natural rhythm of speech in English, iambic pentameter is a very common meter in poetry written using the English language. In fact, we have a very special type of poetry called blank verse, and that is poetry written in unrhymed iambic pentameter. It is called such because the ends of lines are blank of rhyme. They don't have any rhyme, but we still have a regular meter. A lot of Shakespeare's poetry and plays are written in iambic pentameter, and that's what Sapphira and Daniel reminds us. They remind us that some of the greatest English poetry is written in blank verse, including much of the poetry in Shakespeare's plays. So I don't want you to worry too much if you have trouble scanning some lines of some poems. So when we look at a line of poetry to figure out its meter, we call that scanning, right? Scansion is the process of doing that. So when we're doing it, we call it scanning. Don't worry if you have too much trouble, if you have some trouble with some lines of poems. Many poems may have variations in meter within a single line or stanza. Be open to the possibility of mixed meters, which can add complexity and nuance to poems.